Thank you so much, Sam. Good morning to colleagues, Deputy Executive Mayor, MMC, City Manager, and the officials, the members of the media. Thank you so much for being here. This is a story that has gotten us into a situation with our residents, and it was important that instead of responding to your queries as they come in, that we all avail ourselves as the leadership of the city to be able to answer all the questions that you guys have. So thank you so much for being here, and to the residents of Tshwane, good morning. So we are convening this briefing, ladies and gentlemen, to address the recent allegations by News 24 regarding water tanker expenditure, a report that was published on Sunday. We obviously recognize the public concern and remain committed to full transparency and accountability. When we started as this administration, we committed to always make ourselves available, to be held accountable, but always be available to be scrutinized. So it is important in the context of this story, it is important to correct the factual inaccuracies and provide context about how this expenditure arose, what the verified figures show, and the measures being implemented to strengthen oversight and reduce dependency on water tankers. So in the main, we've got four objectives. One, we need to quell the myth of the 777. Secondly, we need to give the record and a correct account in terms of what has happened, in terms of the expenditure, how we work around the water tankering, but also share with you that this is not a new issue. Like other municipalities in the country, we also have ailing infrastructure, and the issue of water tankering is one of the issues that we have been seized with since we have taken over. So we'll share some of the work that we have done in that regard and the work that's still to happen. So, ladies and gentlemen, the claim that the city of Tshwane spent 777 million on water tankers is incorrect, and it misrepresents the real situation, and it's important that we take you through what the correct figure is. This figure is not based on audited expenditure, but on a system extract showing the total value of purchase orders, including about 156 million rand in cancelled, duplicated, or unprocessed transactions. It reflects procurement activity, not actual expenditure. Verified financial records shows a very different picture, and we'll show you on that presentation. In 2023-2024 financial year, which is the two financial years back, the city for the first time ring-fenced the tanker function and recorded an amount of 322 million rand in expenditure. This includes the 179 million rand in unpaid invoices that were only processed and paid in 2025. In your records, you may have the story that happened on the 24th of July 2024, where the water tanker businesses blocked Tshwane House looking to be paid. And so those invoices, they belong to the 2023-2024 financial year, not the 2024-2025 financial year. The 140 million rand quoted in the media excludes these unpaid bills, and therefore understates the true the true cost incurred under the previous administration. When these invoices were eventually settled, they were carried over to the new administration's books, creating a false impression of a sharp rise in spending. In 2024-2025, verified records from Group Finance confirmed total amount paid to the tune of 621 million rand, which includes the 179 million rand in accruals from 2023-2024. Once these are excluded, the actual expenditure amounts to 441 million rand, which represents a 36% increase from the previous year, corresponding directly with a 50% increase in water outages during the same period. Of the 441 million, by the way, 98 million of this expenditure was from Q1, meaning July to September 2024. which amounts to 22%. So the story that this administration in a space of 9 months spent 777 million rand is not correct. It is also important to note that the first budget upliftment for tanker operations in 2024-2025 was initiated before the new administration took office in October 2024. In September 2024, a request for an additional 150 million rands was submitted to the city manager after the initial budget had already been exhausted within the first quarter of the financial year. This upliftment was later regularized through the February 2025 adjustment budget, and we explained this to our opposition when we went for the adjustment in council. These upliftments, together with the need to settle the 179 million rand in unpaid invoices from the previous year, confirm that the city's tanker expenditure challenges were driven by pre-existing operational pressures and unpaid liabilities. It should also be noted that expenditure incurred between July and mid-October 2024 falls under the previous administration, even if payments were processed later. This distinction, ladies and gentlemen, is important for accurate financial accountability and to ensure that responsibility for expenditure is correctly attributed. I just want to take you through, if Sam, you can just proceed with the slides there, just to put an emphasis on what we are talking about. Firstly, we want to dispel the myth that we have spent 777 million rand. The 777 million rand, it's a screenshot that was taken from our subsystem, but it's a total value of purchase orders. And of that 777, an amount of around 156 million is either rejected, cancelled, or still being reviewed. It doesn't mean that so that amount doesn't represent actual expenditure. It basically is just a snapshot, and that's the problem when officials are leaking information, because they start leaking wrong information. The verified figure, the actual expenditure for 2024-2025 is 621 million rands. There is an amount of 179 million rand in accruals, which means the invoices that were not paid the previous financial year, 2023-2024 financial year. Now, we can also even give you the letters where the requests for the upliftment of funds were made. Now, as I said, if you're looking at excluding this amount of 177, the amount of 179 million rand, we are left with 441 million rand. That was the expenditure for 2024-2025. 22% was spent in the quarter one of the financial year under the previous administration, which means the amount that this administration is going to account for where the city manager will come in is the amount of 342 million, and we'll show how we got to that figure. If you go to the next one, maybe let me just give a view of how that amount came about, the 342 million rand. I think, Sam, you can go to the next one. Yeah, so you will recall that in July, August, and December, there was planned maintenance that was done by Rand Water. And because that maintenance has not been done in years, and so it wasn't planned for by the city in terms of the provision of water, but it's something that we needed to deal with. And for those periods, we can account to an amount of 75 million rand that was emergency tendering during those large-scale shutdowns. We obviously still have the issue with our ailing infrastructure and not enough investment that leads to infrastructure breakdown. And when we look at the reasons where we had to deploy water tankers because of infrastructure breakdowns, that amount accumulates to the amount of 138 million rand. You would know that the city was compelled after the cholera outbreak due to the Hammanskraal water crisis that we must provide alternative supply of water to the residents of Hammanskraal for the purpose of drinking. That tankering is to the tune of 84 million rand, and the same was done for the Rooival farmers that are affected by the same Hammanskraal Water or Rooival project, and that one is to the tune of 24 million rand. We thought it will be important just to give you a breakdown in terms of why we got to the amount that we've got into. But I think CM, you can take over just to get to the details of this.
Thank you, Executive Mayor. To a large extent, the highlights have already been mentioned by the Executive Mayor, and I will just show a clear link that the data shows between the number of water outages and the city tanker expenditure. So in the financial years 2021-22 and 22-23, Tshwane recorded an average of about 7,800 so-called no water reports of each year, and that figure doubled to about 15,000 in 23-24, and it surged to about 23,000 in 24-25. And it is that increase in incidents that then mirrors the rise in the tanker cost, confirming a direct relationship between the service interruptions and the rate and level of spending. So, as indicated in 23-24, the tanker expenditure amounted to 322 million rand, and that aligned with about 15,000 reported outages in the following financial year, 24-25. Those outages then rose by 58%, as previously indicated, and the expenditure then rose to the 441 million, after one would then exclude the accruals that actually related to the previous financial year. But interestingly, so despite the sharp rise in the incidents, the average cost per outage fell by about 14%, reflecting an improved efficiency in tanker deployment and coordination. The Executive Mayor has already indicated what those outages were, or that put strains on the system. Time-wise, in July of 24, there were the Rand water outages. In November and December of 24, planned outages on Heights reservoirs. In the following year, in May of 25, there was the Hartbeeshoek shutdown. And then in June of 25, there was the highest number of low-level reservoir alarms ever recorded on our telemetry system, coincided with the year's largest expenditure on tankering. So those four periods that I've just mentioned then accounts for most of the variation within the 441 million expenditure for the whole of the 24-25 financial year. If I can move over to the causes of the water interruption, as I've indicated, the main causes were the bulk supply interruptions from Rand water. Also, of course, the contamination of the Apis River and the Hammanskraal supply area. There's also the aging distribution network, which we are working on, but there's only about 20% of the funding that is required per year, so that then creates a growing backlog. We also have the failures at key reservoirs and treatment facilities. There are some power supply disruptions, there's vandalism, and there's sabotage, and there's also critical facilities and high-risk users such as hospitals. The Kanafong Hospital is one. The Weskop is, you will recall, was also in the news for water not being available, and that would then increase the use of water tankering. We also want to, and we have to reduce our reliance on the water tankers. That we acknowledge, and our key measures then include a borehole development program, and our Human Settlements Department has set aside or has been allocated an amount of 10 million rand to develop boreholes in informal and peri-urban areas. That includes Nieuwfontein, Pienaspoort, the Wagersdrift, the Kameeldrift, among others. We also have a partnership with the University of Pretoria to compare the cost of internal versus outsourced tankering operations. There's also the study on alternate water supply, developing a new policy to diversify our supply so that we have less of a reliance on rand water. So we're talking about water reclamation, sand abstraction, and of course also rainwater harvesting. So we are looking at those avenues as well. We're also looking at the expansion of the city's internal tanker fleet. We currently operate about 18 of them, 13 of which is fully functional. So we want to rely more on own capacity than renting out that service of moving water from a hydrant to a community. Also, the installation of communal taps. Pilot projects are currently underway. We want to provide communal taps in a number of informal settlements. Also, then the issue of hydrant metering and digital monitoring. All hydrants used for water extraction will be fitted with meters and digital tracking systems to prevent the abuse and to ensure accountability. And then lastly, also the strengthening of financial controls and oversight. We can always do things better. So we have introduced a series of reforms to strengthen governance, improve accountability, and ensure that tanker-related expenditure is tightly managed. Some of those measures include centralizing the tankering operations under a single command structure, installing meters on hydrants to monitor water extraction, tracking tanker movements through GPS, expanding the use of city-owned tankers to reduce the reliance on contractors, redeploying municipal drivers to support tanker operations, establishing an operational optimization team, and registering tanker expenditure as a monitored operational risk. And then lastly, also then just enhancing, and thereby also enhancing the oversight by the Municipal Public Accounts Committee, internal audit, and then also the Auditor General. Yeah.
Thank you. So it was important that we get the technical view in terms of how did we arrive at this expenditure. But I just want to make a few points of emphasis on the work that we have been doing and championing as the political leadership in order to reduce the reliance on water tankers. Firstly, we have started withdrawing water tankers on certain areas. Ikageng, that for 6 years was supplied through water tankers, they no longer use water tankers. We have withdrawn the water tankers from that area, and that has happened, and it should reflect on the savings that we're going to have this financial year. Last year, this year in January, we have started withdrawing and reducing the number of tankers in Hammanskraal because of the Module 1 completion there. So we're not keeping water tankers when they are not needed. Secondly, the amount of water tankers that were procured in the financial year that started in July 2025 is 15. This adds to the fleet that the city already had, but we made an announcement or commitment as this administration that we're going to reduce reliance on contractors when the city can do the work. So we've already, those water tankers are being fitted as we speak. The drivers that will be used are the drivers of the city. The hydrants that CM is talking about, you know that we struggle with water losses. because of aging infrastructure. There's been a chronic underinvestment over the years in the city. I always make the point that in 2019, the capital budget of the city was over 4 billion rand, only to find it in 2023, 2024, when I returned to the city, being 2 billion rand. Of course, that has direct impact on the investment that has been made on the capital or on the infrastructure development. Now, this reliance on water tankers, we then noted that there's a loophole here. Water tankers go withdraw from our hydrants. We only pay for the transport. They withdraw from our hydrants, and we are not looking out for value for money. How much water is being withdrawn? Where does it go? And so we already have metered 7 hydrants of the 20 that we have, because also there was a criminal element where people would withdraw water of the city, go and sell it to our residents. So that's the other initiative that we have started. The other one is on the infrastructure investment. Through the newly established business unit, there is a strong emphasis on increasing the amount of money or investment that we make, particularly on the reservoirs that have been there for more than 50 years, that have not been upgraded. One of those is the Bronco Strait, where we've started allocating budget to upgrade Bronco Strait. So that work is also underway. I thought it was important that I just share that we have not been sitting on this challenge. We know that there is a challenge with water tankering, but there's work that we've already started doing. But I think the last part is that even if we can be able to show you the reasons for the expenditure here, the question that is lingering in the residents' mind, did we get value for money? It doesn't matter which month, which year it happened, did we get value for money? And because our pursuit of reducing reliance and looking for alternative sources of supply for water is the feedback that we got from residents. Residents say we don't want water tankers. There's many things that can go wrong with water tankers. Sometimes the residents would say even the color of the water doesn't look clean, and therefore the residents are rejecting water tankering. And so all these initiatives, but now the question is, did we get value for money? So to answer that question, obviously there is an investigation that we can't delve much into that started earlier in the year when we were discussing the issue of theft and vandalism and sabotage of our both electricity and water infrastructure. And you would understand that we are exposed because there was a decision that was taken to withdraw security or protection of our assets. People made excuses why they did it, but we are bleeding because of that decision. So when we realized that we are exposed, we then asked this state agency to partner with us, and the investigation is ongoing. But on the question of value for money, we have now referred the matter to CM to make sure that we appoint an independent investigator to be able to tell us whether this amount that has been paid, whether there has been value for money. So those are the points that we thought we could share with you in terms of the amount, our response to the middle of the 77 million rand, and give you the correct account of events, the causes for that, but also to take the residents into confidence in terms of what is the work that we are currently doing on the side of the administration and the political leadership in order to reduce reliance on water tankering. But also going forward, we need to answer whether we got in value for money for the money spent, and how we'll make sure that that doesn't happen in the financial year that started in July. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Executive Mayor. Colleagues, do not fret. You will receive the remarks made by the City Manager and Executive Mayor, as well as the presentation you see on the screen. I will email it and we'll get it in your WhatsApps.
Slide 8. There is a slide I just want to show you so you can take pictures here. Go 8. I want you to take pictures of this. because we've been paraded, we've been paraded as a corrupt administration that feeds on water tankers. And I need you, yeah, this one, take that one. And ask whoever has been parading us as a corrupt administration to go and account for that 419 million. We are good, sir.
All right, that's the game. So let's get started. You will get this presentation. You'll be taking your pictures as well as the remarks by the CM and EM. You will raise your hand. I will take a series of 3 questions. You will introduce yourself and direct to whom you are addressing the question. They will answer the question and then I'll come back for another round. And those of you I assume will want the second proverbial bite of the cherry, you will get your bite of those proverbial cherries. So can I have the hands? Elise, number 1. There we go. Offense. And Dinu. Let's take those first rounds. Elise, go ahead.
Elise Parker from Pretoria Records. This is from Mr. Mettler, please. Does the city have purchase orders for all of the water tanker invoices that were paid in 2024-25 financial year?
Offensive. Offensive thing also is I'd like to know about the progress in terms of the potable water treatment plant for Hammansdal residents, as I saw that the expenditure for providing water under the budget was 84 million.
Diniko?
Zineko Mhlaba from Newsroom Africa. This is for the mayor or the finance MEC. What is the current mechanism used to identify the service providers who are providing water? But also, what is the vetting process in terms of checking whether a particular service provider has an interest or has any links with any politician or any member of the city? But second question is that the city of Tshwane has been having water challenges for over decades now. Various administrations at the executive level of Hanako, we saw Minister Tshwane had a meeting with the former mayor somewhere in one of the townships with the deputy minister. People really expressed their frustrations with tendering. At some point, they didn't even want the previous mayor to even address them. And even this current executive has visited the city. So what are the core issues that are not being addressed? Because we're not talking about an issue here that started last year. It's over a decade problem. What are the issues? Is the national government and the city not wanting to really get into the bottom of this problem by fixing the infrastructure? Because I think that's where the problem is. We'll be talking about the current tendering scandal now, if the core issues were addressed and confronted. So can you just clarify there? And what are your concerns of the city in regard to that issue? Thank you.
Over to you, Ian.
Let me come last. CM, I don't know if I should just move back and then I'll come back. I think it's easy for me to just move.
Okay. We do have a formal process that would allow us to pay for services. So there must be a procurement process, there must be an appointment letter. The appointment letter would state the basis upon which the services must be presented, and of course how the invoices must happen. So when we order services, we do so formally through means of a purchase order. There cannot be and there should not be instances where services are being delivered without a purchase order, because a purchase order will confirm whether there is budget, or whether it is the correct service, and whether there is a link between that service and of course the service provider that is requesting to be paid. So in each and every case, there must be a purchase order. If it is no purchase order, that would amount to irregular expenditure, and it would be identified as such and would be subject to an investigation and any consequences that may follow. Thank you. I think that was. for me.
I think the process to identify service providers would be for me.
Yes, they can also be added, but there is a formal process that we use to identify service providers. So in the normal course of events, there would be a roster, and so that we ensure that services are then equally and equitably requested across the board. But there are also instances of emergencies where there's a sudden pipe burst and the community does not have water. It comes to our attention, for example, that a major hospital, as has happened, California, I've indicated, or West Scottish, that they do not have water, and then the relevant department then makes a call as to which of the service providers have adequate resources in order to address that particular instance. So it would be on that basis that services would then be provided. We have vetting processes that is part of the supply chain management processes to be sure that that we deal with the directors, or whether they have any links with the administration or with any decision maker in the municipality. So that then goes through our supply chain system. It should pick it up. If it's not picked up, it will obviously give rise to irregular expenditure. That will then also be investigated. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll confine myself to the supply chain as by Ziniko. Just to underscore what the CMS said in terms of our procurement processes, we have reviewed how we do things here at home. We have standardized the PROBIT. In all these critical tenders, there's a PROBIT which conducts thorough investigations. And what we did, we have conducted skills audit on all the supply chain employees, and we are busy with a lifestyle audit. And I think we are at the tail end of receiving that audit. And then what we have standardized is what CMS said. Each and every irregularity is subjected to MPEC. So we are communicating with the national CSD just to establish that this company is valid, functional, and doesn't have any litigations, so that we can proceed with it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, colleagues. I think the part offense on Klipdrift Module 2, we are at pain in explaining the delays in this project. You would recall, as you mentioned, the former Minister of Water and Sanitation, Minister Mkhulu, when the project was launched, all the 4 modules of the package plan should have been completed by June 2025. And the appointed implementing agent there is Magalies Water. Magalies Water is contracted by Department of Water and Sanitation. We work with them because the city is responsible for reticulation. The first module, you'd know that it was delayed. Instead of being delivered in September 2024, as initially planned, it was delivered in January 2025. It had an impact on other modules, but little did we know that the impacting would be that even Module 2 would not have been delivered by now. The Module 2 was supposed to be delivered initially in February. It was then partially handed over in June 2025. When the Minister Majodina, we went to Hammanskraal residents and said the water is coming, the Module 2 is complete. And at the time, we said to the residents, for us, if the module is complete, we get the 12.5 megaliters. It will take us two to 3 weeks to purify the water, and those communities have water. What we have not been able to get from Magalies is the 12.5 megaliters that they have promised. We have been ranging between 5 and at best 9 megaliters, which is not what the demand for that area is. We have done all the tests from the side of the city, working with DWS and Magalies. Most of the areas, they are compliant. We're just waiting for the water to flow. But what even gotten worse in that area now is that there was an alternative supply. I think it's called Boy Plus, the pipe that was connected, but that pipe was not enough to cater for the demand in those areas. So where we are now, we are waiting for Magalies Water to deliver the 12.5 megaliters. We have escalated to the minister so that we can get a proper update, because communication hasn't been great, even to the communities, on what is happening. And so we have asked the minister to once again intervene, at least to get a view of whether Magalies will be able to deliver this water at least by December. On the side of the city, they've asked us to start exploring the work that we can do with them in optimizing timber, but it's still not clear how that work is going to assist if Magalies is unable to give us the 12.5 megaliters. We have been to meetings with Magalies, we have scheduled site visits with them, but the bottom line is that the 12.5 megaliters that should have been given to communities in July 2025 has not been delivered by Magalies, and so we wait. So that's where we are in relation to the Clip Drift package plant.
Sorry, release, we left the invoices. We've got invoices of everything. They are verified. Actually, before generating a remittance, we get an invoice. So in terms of aligning ourselves with POPI, we can give you, but we need to get the consent from the service provider.
I just need to confirm, have a confirmation that were there fraudulent invoices? Have you identified this irregular expenditure? Have you identified fraudulent invoices or not?
Yes, we did. We got it's classified, but I'll try to be economical, but to the point. We have rejected the invoices to the tune of 120 million rands.
120?
Yes, that's demonstrate that we have conducted a thorough investigation, but we are still proceeding. That's why even the executive mayor, when he was giving you, before reaching here, she told you that this were not part of what we paid. Remember, the 179 was coming from the previous year, but we identified the invoices and the discrepancies. Thank you.
Oh, yes. Oh, sorry, I forgot. Zinigo, the issue of infrastructure, my apologies. I'm using a wrong color, pink. I think first of all, it's no secret that the city of Tshwane, the backlog on infrastructure development is huge. We mapped out that in the next 10 years, we need 58 billion rands to meet our infrastructure development demand. And when we looked at how much we are investing in the next MTREF, it will take us 34 years to meet a 10-year demand. And you would realize that the city of Tshwane, in terms of the population, not only considering the amalgamation of areas like the former Bophuthatswane, the side of Bronkhorstspruit and Metsweding, which now their infrastructure development had to be considered in the city. But also there's a growing population where the city of Tshwane in 2011 had 2 million people. In 2025, we've got over 4 million residents that are accounted for. And so there is now a greater demand on our infrastructure, but the investment is not matching the infrastructure. Secondly, there is an issue of theft and vandalism. I'll make an example. In February, we were in Mabopane. There was a Block B area there in Mabopane that wasn't receiving water. And we went to disconnect the illegal connections that were there. What we found, the reason why the water was not flowing to that particular area, someone closed the valve. You would have seen a true MMC Bushielo talking about the program of Tiba Dilik in Mamelodi, where we then realized that some of that is not only illegal connections, but it's intentional where people just close the valves so that the water doesn't flow. So the issue of theft and vandalism and illegal connections, they're also adding strain to the ailing infrastructure. Is there a will to deal with this? There must be a will to deal with it. We don't have a choice. Because if we don't deal with it, we will forever have this crisis where we pay for things that we shouldn't be paying for. We're already paying for water that we get from rainwater. To now pay for the water to go to the people, that's an unnecessary cost. So through the business unit, you would understand how it's structured with the work that we are doing with National Treasury. There must be investment in terms of the water infrastructure, whether the pipes, whether the reservoirs, whether on repairs and maintenance, there must be investment in that. But importantly is also to say, how do we use the off-balance sheet method to raise money to match the demand? And that's the work that we have started even with the city manager. Now, the city has two own sources of water, which we are looking to reduce our reliance on rainwater if we can optimize on those. And that's a Road de Plat and Red Flame. And we are putting those to the market to help us to optimize on them, which is going to also assist. But in the short term, what do? It's what we've said. Let's get value for money. When there is a need to tanker, let's get value for money in that we must know how much water we are using to be delivered to people through water tankering. But also we are saying we don't necessarily need service providers for this because we have now started procuring our own water tankers that in the case of emergency, we treat it as a case of emergency. These amounts doesn't show that this is a case of emergency. This is normalized. And so we then need our own water tankers that will be delivered using our drivers to go deliver. That is the short term. But there is a will, there must be a will, or else this is not sustainable, because if we're looking at our population growth, we are expecting the city, with all the initiatives that we have plotted, whether economic growth initiatives, whether just service delivery, we getting reports that more and more people are moving to the city of Tshwane. That means we must meet the infrastructure demand that comes with that.
Cool. Thank you. I'll take the second round of questions, starting with yourself, Mariska. Any other hands? Thabiso. Third hand, Elise, second bar to the cherry. Cool. Mariska.
Okay. Hi everyone, Mariska from The Citizen. I just want to know, is there really something like the water mafia? And then just a bit more on the water tankers. I think you said the city had 18 tankers and only 13 is used, and then there was 50 procured. I just want to know how many tankers are being contracted so that we are relying on some contracts. And then I also know that Deputy Mayor now said that some information is sensitive or classified, but is there a possibility that the city can tell us who these contractors are? That we can also just like set, let the residents have a restful heart. But yeah.
Cool. Thabiso.
Thabiso Gola from my witnesses. Just maybe a political question on my end. As you said, Mayor, this 777 came from a screenshot of the SAP system. I think it appreciates you also know that there's also been another screenshot of the report into the Deputy Mayor, I think from the same SAP system. I mean, we know we're going to elections. Just maybe how concerned are you around, obviously, these sort of leaks? And I think, obviously, from what you've presented here, it looks like there are leaks that maybe have the intention of painting this current administration in a bad light. Just how concerned are you, especially considering that the fact that we're about a year away from the elections? Thank you.
Cool. Elise?
Mr. Mettler was talking about the adjustment budget and that there was increased provision, and I saw that it was for the water tankers. That increased provision in that budget was quite significant, but even this did not come close to the amount mentioned earlier, the myth of the 777. Can you just clear that out for me? What was the added significant amount in that adjustment budget for this year?
Cool. Thank you. I assume you want
Colleagues,
EFC.
anyone wants to? Good. Is it? No, then you can start.
Oh,
Use yours.
we're moving. No, on the Mariska, the contractors actually is a norm on the system that upon appointment of contractors, they are flighted on the system. So it's a public document that you can access anytime. And then the leaks, she'll come in, but I think I can start by here. We are not faced by the leaks, by the way. And actually, we are not going to succumb to this kind of gimmicks. The intention is to play poker with the emotions of the residents. When you take a number like 777, it's like you're playing poker. And then we cannot subject ourselves to that. This is details. And these are facts which are empirical, and you can't do anything about it. That money there, the red one, is coming from the previous government. And that's why the EM said take a picture so that you can internalize and go through it. So we are not faced by that. But in addition, remember the opposition have identified candidates. So they are trying to do something, and they are in pain with what we are doing. I mean, they failed to give people of Ikaheng water for 5 years. We did it now within 12 months. They failed to procure tankers. We procured them. So that's the pain that we're not faced by that. We're not in the mode of elections. We'll come by then at an appropriate time. Thanks.
Just on the accruals, I think on the very same slide, you would see that there were accruals that then went through the adjustment budget to the tune of 179 million for the 23-24 financial year. I don't have the number for the 24-25 financial year, CFO. If you can just give that number to me, what was the shortage and what that amount was. I'm looking through my notes. It's not jumping out at me, but I'll get back to you on that one. But certainly for the 23-24, it was 179.9 million.
Yeah, thank you, colleagues. I think for me, on the question that Mariska is asking, we are trying to avoid making unfounded statements about water mafias. When the first time that we said something in public about a suspicion that we may have an element, which we could not call it a water mafia, is when we made a decision to reduce the number of days in which we deliver water in informal settlements, somewhere, I think in May or June, I can't remember which month, but this year. And it was within our financial prudence, pursuing financial prudence, where we realized that we may run out of budget, and we quickly had to make a means on how to make sure we mitigate the expenditure. One Friday, we were informed as the executive that there are people with we at the hydrants stopping trucks from withdrawing water because of this decision. That's when I think we then got concerned, do we have this problem? But the investigation I was talking about earlier, that started earlier this year, is also going to look at that. Do we have that problem? But I don't want us to appear naive. The Minister of Water and Sanitation has spoken about water mafia in relation to water tankering, but that is at a national level. Hence, we could not ignore the problem. And so that investigation will tell us if we have that problem in the city. But what I don't want us to conflate is unhappy service providers that have not been paid, and then we start labeling them as mafias. The group that came in the city in June 2024, we were here with the former MMC of Water and Sanitation, Fosi. He ran away, literally ran away, and left the officials to deal with the problem in his department. We had to use the back door. I didn't even know we have it in the underground here in Tshwane House. We were escorted very quickly. How he got out is, he must tell us the story. But that day, that 179 million rand, you can trace it to that 24 July 2024. They closed down Madiba Street. I think you were here, Mariska. You were here. Did you see Fosse that day?
No.
Did you see Bring that day?
No.
Exactly. So here is the context that we are not telling you. In 2021 and 2022, there was no budget for water tankers. It only started being ring-fenced as a line item in 2023, 2024. It doesn't mean there was no expenditure in 2021 and 2022. It's just that we didn't want to bring a lot of information here. Now, we don't want to conflate and say service providers that were used by the city that didn't have an expenditure item on water tankers, when they want to be paid, we call them mafias. We don't want to do that. If there's a water mafia problem in Tshwane, the investigation that I'm talking about will give us a view. Tabi, so in terms of the screenshots and the leaks, in any institution where there's opposition, you do have elements of officials that have chosen who they want to be their leaders, and they would want to use the delegated powers that they have as officials to breach the policies that have appointed them to feed the information to the opposition. It's a standardized culture across the institutions, which means we must accept that it happens, but city manager must make it his business to find out who is breaching their employment contracts, because it is a breach of their employment contract. Are we worried? You would have seen most of the coverage from the media. You scandalize us because of the information that comes from the media. Soon you will know who we're dating. Recently, my home address, the DA has publicized my home address, where I stay, where I sleep. Recently, I had to beg the speaker to say, please do not upload my address on the intranet for everyone to see. But junior officials were running around with my home address. If that is not meant to hurt me personally, I don't know what is. So it's gonna get dark and it's gonna get deeper, but the assurance we want to give is that we have made a commitment to the residents. You see, when we say to you, we've inherited a mess, that's the mess we are talking about. But we said we're not going to depress the residents with what we found, but we'll do something about it, and we are doing something about it. If that is matched with the opposition that failed this city for 8 years, it's fine, we'll meet it. But we're not going to pollute the work that we do and confuse the residents by looking back while they are looking for solutions from us as the leadership. But it's personal. I mean, if you can go for my home address, that's as personal as it can get.
If I can, not on the last point, just on the point of the adjustment budget figures for the 24-25 financial year. The original budget for water tankering was at 78 million rand, 78.2. In the adjustment budget that we passed then in 25, or around March of 25, we passed an adjusted budget of 320.2 million in order to deal with those instances that we have highlighted in the presentation.
Can I just have that figure again?
320.2 million.
Thank you. Round 3. Are there any takers? We'll start here. Straight gentleman. I'm looking for a second hand. Going once, going twice. Elise, the fourth bite of the cherry. Okay, those two hands, and then we can close this off. Let's go. The question answer on the cap, and then Elise, you will close us off, and then we can conclude proceedings.
Thank you so much. Mayor, Mayor, just an update on the revenue collection regarding water. Are you collecting revenue? Are you winning? Which are the hotspot areas? Which areas are not paying? We have to know these areas.
Thank you.
Cool, Elise?
I wonder if I can just ask Mr. Mettler if he can confirm to me this is the information that I was given around the tankers. So there's 279 tankers out there running around with water, each of them carrying 10,000 to 15,000 litres of water. This water goes to 168 informal settlements and the cost was 275 million, and this goes on for 4 days a week.
Cool.
Is that it, sir?
Yes, that's
Okay,
those two questions.
CFO, just be ready on the side of the revenue on water and MMC Maluleka on the Elise question.
Thank you. What we were dealing with is earlier on, it's what we call emergency tankering. But the Constitution then dictates that we should provide rudimentary services to informal settlements. Therefore, Executive Mayor earlier on was talking about we should make this emergency. It should not look like informal settlements where we know that the 502 informal settlements rely on us to provide them rudimentary services. Therefore, this is true that we have 279 mobile tankers with 98 service providers. It's for human settlement. Therefore, that's a budget that we have annually. Each service provider of the 98 has 3 tankers. Therefore, we've made sure that all the 98 service providers, all of them, they've got 3 tankers. Therefore, there's no fluctuation. The only thing that we need to do, and when we're having internal discussions, was that at least in human settlement, we've got controls and mechanisms of accounting for every water that we're distributing. But we still want to strengthen that with the proposals that were said here, that the trackers, metered hydrants, we should also have those control mechanisms in place so that people enjoy these water services. But we will also try to reduce on the reliance of water tankers. We must put in boreholes. We must pilot standpipes so that people can get, the dignity that comes with how water is distributed. Must also speak to humanitarian elements. Therefore, we want to make sure that we then move away from tankering as human settlement, because some of these informal settlements that are outside the urban edge, there's no bulk connection. Whether you like it or you don't like it, you will still continue in some areas to provide water with tankers. But where there's bulk service, then let's connect to our network so that we can at least have standpipes and network that distributes water to these informal settlements. Thank you.
CFO?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Come this side. He doesn't want people to know the secret.
Where is your laptop, CFO?
he's from the
He doesn't want the water mafia to see.
Thank you so much. I think from a revenue collection perspective, at the end of the first quarter, we've arrived at about 14.4 billion rand in terms of our collections. That makes up 99% of the city's budget. We do have an RTT structure that's there aimed at monitoring and implementing key aspects of our revenue enhancement program. I think from a water perspective, we are significantly concerned. Hence, we are running a number of blitz, disconnecting any illegal connections and ensuring that we address that function. We've recently commissioned water services as a business unit as well. The aim and purpose is to ensure that this runs as a profitable unit that will add to the city's fiscus. Thanks.
MMC will talk about the areas of concern.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, journalist. I just also wanted to emphasize on some various points that were indicated by my colleagues, the executive mayor and the deputy executive mayor and the other MMCs. Especially just before, let me put it into the context that water is life, it's a source of life. Without water, there is no life. And that is why in most cases we don't want to pretend as if we are going to do away with the water tankering for good. As we have indicated in the submission that we are doing a lot to make sure that we reduce or cap over-reliance on water tankering as a system for supplying water. But unfortunately, this is an obvious choice that we have, even though it is not sustainable for us as the municipality because it is draining through our fiscals. But it is our constitutional imperative. When there is water disruption, we need to provide people with water. People can't wait for 2 days without water. That is why we are opting for water tankering system as a way of ensuring that as an emergency, we provide the citizens of Tshwane with water. But we are doing a lot in terms of making sure that there is accessibility of water through various mechanisms. Let me give you 1 or 2 examples that they have been mentioning as we are doing as a city. We are currently ensuring that we optimize our water treatment plants that we have. The city is getting 80% of water from rainwater, and about 18% is our own sources, and 2% is from Magalis. So from our own sources, we are making sure that we also need to reduce our over-reliance on rainwater by optimizing our internal sources of providing water. There are 2 areas like Ridgevlei, which has got a design capacity of 40 megaliters per day. It was not being used according to their capacity. What we have done is that through our partnership with Rainwater, we have got artisans that have been stationed there for quite some time. It was giving us 6 months ago, it was giving us only 10% of our capacity of this 40% of the 40 capacity. So currently, after our intense maintenance, that water treatment plant is now producing over 22% of the daily mega liters per day. So we are doing it to ensure that there is accessibility of water to our residents. The same applies to Roodeplaat water treatment plant, which has got a capacity of 60 megaliters per day. It was not providing those 60, but through the intervention in our partnership with Rainwater, we have increased that capacity. So I must also indicate, there was a question about our water challenges. What are we doing? What are the causes of not us ensuring that we address these challenges? I think the executive mayor has also spoken about the infrastructure investment and the challenges that we have in terms of illegal connection, vandalism to our infrastructure. But we are not holding our arms and saying, no, we can't do this. We are implementing various programs in our city. Like, for example, we've got a program called pipeline replacement, ensuring that all the effective pipes are being replaced to ensure that we have got a reliable supply of water to the people. If you look at the figures there, most of the figures are because of our infrastructure, the defective infrastructure, the failure of infrastructure. When the infrastructure fails, we must intervene as the accountable coalition, because that is why we are here today, because we are the transparent and accountable coalition government. We are here to explain ourselves how we arrive at those figures. Thank you very much.
We know we've kept you beyond the budgeted time, colleagues, but just to conclude on the issue of the pressure points on the water. So when we look at our losses, our non-revenue losses, that would be Region 1 and Region 6. So MMC, Bushelo and DEM have led them the blitz in Soshanguve. There are 3 wards that are giving us problems there, and in Mamelodi in particular when we're talking about Region 6. So the issues that we're talking about, there is a combination of the growing population that we're talking about and the ailing infrastructure. So that's where the pressure points are. Of course, with the number of water shedding that we have, the number of incidents there, you don't really get an encouraged customer base that wants to pay because of the interruption of service. But when we started, and this is the lesson that we learned during the November shutdown, there was a water crisis in the city, but we emerged being better. Normally, the areas of Atteridgeville, Lodia, Mabopane, Soshanguve, Didi, Ikageng, Bronkhorstspruit, Hammanskraal, those were areas that were forever having water cuts. But I can tell you now that Lodiam is quiet, except for once in a while there's a pipe burst. Atteridgeville is quiet. Mabopane is sorted, they've got their own water, except when we had this large-scale maintenance. Soshanguve DD, yesterday we were looking at the telemetrics. That shows us when was the tower at 20%. In the past 5-6 months, the tower has always been at a healthy level. Before that, the tower was always on the top 10 incidents per month, which that information we can share with you. So we are making progress on the areas where there's pressure points. The Ikageng is sorted. We just need to make sure that we complete the mid to long-term solution so that that area doesn't go back to where it was. Bronkhorstspruit, there's short-term interventions, including installation of the pump, but also we've started budgeting on the capital budget for upgrades. The one that is going to remain a thorny issue because that one is not directly in our control. That's the area of Hammanskraal. But we remain fully committed to assist both Mahalis and the department to a point where we even asked that maybe let's explore with the rainwater if we can bring additional capacity through the city of Tshwane to assist with the project. So we're still remaining concerned. So I'm just saying these are the pressure points in general, but these are the interventions we are making progress. But in the main, we need to invest in water infrastructure, replace pipes, because Region 4, for instance, where we are having issues with sinkholes, we are talking about the exacerbating factors is the old pipes that are leaking. So we need to scale up our infrastructure development. But from our side, colleagues, thank you so much for being here. We don't take your presence here for granted. I know that there are other stories that are also as important, but it was important that we bring the residents of Tshwane and of South Africa into confidence in terms of what is this story about and to dispel the myth that we are playing poker as this administration. Thank you.